The Queen is Dead. By Meep the Changeling. Chapter 6. Lucky Strikes. David, 19th of Megan 15 EOH, morning. The village of Applewood stretched out before me at the bottom of the hill. My first thought was that village was not the appropriate word for the fortified town which lay at the bottom of the hill. This was a fortress playing at being a village. Applewood was surrounded by a wall 4 ponies high made of what I assumed was stone. It was covered in a smooth plaster coating, as were its many watchtowers, making knowing the wall's materials quite impossible. That was something which impressed me a lot. If your enemy can't work out what your wall is, they either bring inefficient means of breaking through it, or overcommit their resources to doing so. Its walls were surrounded by acres and acres of farmland, but that farmland was also protected by a nice wooden palisade wall and a moat. As you looked deeper into the village center, there was another, taller set of walls behind which sat a nice solid-looking Norman keep. Well, I doubt it was actually made by the Normans. I guess some designs just transcend species. Regardless, the many walls, multitude of watchtowers, encamped weapons atop the towers and walls, the many guards actively patrolling the wall tops, and cunning double gate houses which would let you trap individuals between 2 gates made Applewood a very secure place to live. A tactical genius made this place. Jade trotted up to my side as I looked out over the village, and whistled. That's a lot of walls. How long do you think they spent building that? Beats me, but they are serious about defending their homes, I said slowly, an idea popping into my head. They will have a weaponsmith there, meaning I definitely can get what I need done. But didn't you say that a member of your species has been marauding the countryside? Jade blinked, and tilted her head at me in her little confused expression before her eyes widened. Oh. Right. Maybe you should stay here, I advised in as kind of a tone as I could manage. I shouldn't be. I yelped as Jade suddenly burst into bright emerald flames. Oh dear God, had she somehow been doused in chlorine trifluo? The flames vanished as quickly as they came, leaving behind a black Pegasus mare, with the same tail and mane cut as Jade, bright blue eyes, and a butt tattoo of a pair of white clouds. Her face split into a huge grin, the kind only ponies can do, before she fell over backwards laughing, wings flared. Sun's light. Your face. Oh my God, I totally forgot I never told you what happens when we shapeshift. That was Jade's voice. And her sense of humor. Also, I had completely forgotten she had said her people were shape changers. Jade. I will make you clean the camp twice for that. I grumbled, starting to walk off down the hill to Applewood, cart in tow. PFFF, sure. Like it takes me any effort. She chuckled, before trotting over to keep pace with me. What about you, Mr. Diamond Dog? What's your plan for you? I have a foolproof plan. I informed, it works every time, especially in walled cities like this place. Jade pestered me about my plan the entire way up to the palisade wall. A large wooden gatehouse loomed over the two of us, and more than a few guards pointed a spear, bow, or what looked like a crossbow that fired chalk rams in our general direction. I could see unicorns, some pegasi, a zebra, a minotaur. Wait, had that been a dragon? I craned my neck to try and see up into the base of a tower where I swore I had seen an adorable blue-scaled little bipedal dragon. I hadn't gotten to see a dragon before. Everyone always mentioned them in reverent tones, and there might be one right up there, being the coolest fantasy species ever, and I didn't want to. Oof. The butt of a spear interrupted my thoughts rather abruptly. I said halt. An absolutely tiny for an adult lime green Pegasus demanded, spear held under one wing, and planted butt first into my stomach. I took a step back and offered the diminutive guard a polite bow. Apologies, my good sir, I was taken in by the rather impressive construction of your walls. The guard, as well as his partner, blinked in surprise. The half-pint Pegasus squinted at me from under the rim of his full-pint helmet. You speak really well for a dog. I nodded. Indeed, I do. It comes from being well-traveled. I assure you I mean you no harm, my companion, and I only wish to sell our goods within your fine city. We will be gone as soon as our business is concluded. Is what? The other guard, a burly reddish-grey furred earth pony asked. Concluded, as in to finish. I informed in as polite of a tone as I could manage. The diminutive guard tapped his spear butt against my knife. Well, if you're all peace lovin', why are you carrying this? I gave him a soft smile. The same reason you are carrying that spear, good sir. The kingdom is pretty dangerous lately. Jade chimed in. We can keep our weapons in the cart while in town if it's a problem. Ah. Good bug girl, you catch on pretty quick. No one, human, pony, or whatever who has been standing in the hot sun all day wants to fight anyone. A smile and a kind word will get you through just about anyone after the third hour on watch. The two guards exchanged a look, then cautiously nodded. Okay, but you put them in the cart here, and if anyone sees you armed in there, you won't be seen with arms again. The brick shithouse of a pony threatened. Duly noted, sir. I said, faking an expression of submission by making my ears flop. I unbuckled my belt and gently set it down in the cart behind me. A half moment later and Jade did the same thing with her own blade. The two guards whistled, and with a loud creaking groan the wooden gate slid open, leaving the fenced-off area available for us to enter, but the second gate still closed. Oi Patch, Half-Pint Pony shouted, a hoof to his mouth, check these two's wagon and let 'em through. It's always irritating to have someone go through my wagon. It's not some mess of chaos, it's a neatly packed arrangement to various containers, objects, and other cargo. That little wooden handcart is a real bitch to pull with an unbalanced load. Naturally, every time guards inspect it they feel the need to untetris everything in the damn cart. Then, there's the endless explanations. I trade battlefield salvage, that's why I have so many weapons and armor. That is an alchemy kit, please be careful. I am a surgeon by trade, those are tools for healing, not torture. Careful sir, that is alchemical in nature and may explode if mishandled. It would almost be worth it to sneak my way in, but when it's all said and done, jumping through society's hoops is generally the best option. After what felt like an eternity, after the sun moved visibly through the sky, they were finally done inspecting. Meaning I got to put everything back all by myself. I am certain Jade would have helped, but she was just waved through the checkpoint immediately. Just move along, miss. If an old friend of mine could see me now, he'd have a good laugh about me finally understanding racism. As I at least wheeled my cart through the other end of the checkpoint, Jade stood up from the shady spot she had been sitting in and trotted over. Finally. How much crap do they need to look at to realize you're hauling nothing but junk? All of it. I grumbled. Right, Jade sighed. Sorry. So, plan still on? I nodded and began to walk up the path to the village proper. Yes. Since you're a Pegasus right now, we can modify that a little. How about you fly ahead and see where the merchant's district is for me? Jade snapped me a salute, a completely, totally, GI salute that I definitely had never showed her. Sir, she proclaimed, zipping off before could ask where she picked that up. By the time Jade made it back to me, I had just reached the gatehouse which led into the village. The guards gave me a suspicious look as Jade landed atop the cart, but didn't move to stop either of us. I think the market is to the left after the second road. Jade informed, at least, there's a lot of people with stuff there. Good enough for me. I grunted and focused on pulling the cart along. It was a bit tricky, the cobbled streets were narrow. The whole village seemed as if it were being taken over by the thatch-roofed wattle and dog buildings that ponies seemed to love so much. I could never understand their obsession with this architecture style. It wasn't a price thing either, those roofs were more expensive than the more effective treated timber roofs available to them. All I ever got was some vague religious excuse. Something about them letting in the warm love of the sun. One thing they did do was cast shadows everywhere in the narrow streets of overbuilt villages like this one. Applewood on the inside was only describable as a wild hedge with thatched buildings for leaves. It was maddening. But not as maddening as following Jade's directions and winding up in a completely packed full marketplace with far too many options for me to even be able to read the signs of what business and stall was what. God damn it, Jade! Why didn't you tell me it was this packed? I demanded angrily, giving her a hard look. You call this packed? Jade asked in honest surprise. I held a hand up to my face, partially to block out the sea of pastel ponies with islands of other species dotting its expanse, and partially to groan into it. Right, insect species, underground hive. How was I going to even find anything here? The sheer density of people was going to make navigating around the market difficult, and the overabundance of shops in a village of this size meant that most of them had to be selling the same thing. This would be a complex web of bartering to do any goddamn thing. Who knows who would want what, or even if my goods would be something someone here could sell themselves. If only I had been able to sell some cargo in Mooseville. Coin would be the only way to extract value from this place without a guide. My groaning was interrupted as a familiar smell filled my nose. I couldn't quite place it, but a tingling feeling in my gut told me that I knew that smell. That I knew that smell very intimately. God, I hated it when I couldn't remember something that should be obvious. Looking around for the source of the odor, I spotted a completely white earth pony mare standing in the shadows a few feet away from me. Everything about this mare was white, and plain looking, except for a pair of jet stone black eyes, and a butt tattoo in the shape of a sword and crossed scythe sitting atop an hourglass. A slim cigarette, white and orange, glowed faintly in her mouth as she tossed a match to the cobbles. Oh! Right! Tobacco! I exclaimed, placing the scent as I noticed her. Excuse me, miss, does someone in town sell any tobacco? She gave me a smile and shook her head, afraid not. Something tells me you're not here for a smoke though. No one comes to Applewood without a reason. Need a helping hoof? Something tells me you're in need of a little luck. I gave her a curious look. Yes. I answered. Half a second later Jade and I asked together, do I know you? She smiled, and shook her head, probably not. I'm just on vacation here for a while. The mare took a drag on her cigarette before talking further. Look, I don't like wasting my time here. Do you two need a hoof or not? Oh. Sorry. I said quickly, no sense looking a gift pony in the mouth. Yes, I need to find a weaponsmith, preferably one who will be willing to work for scrap metal. Is there one in town? The pale mare nodded and turned into the crowd, waving a hoof for Jade and I to follow. Yeah, right this way. I did some business there last week. She led us through the crowd, which just sort of parted to let us pass through. It felt creepy at first, but after a few moments I realized it was simply because I had a cart, and every pony was assuming I was bringing in a shipment for someone. That was nice of them. The white mare stopped for a moment in front of a medium-sized smithy on the opposite side of the market from where we had entered, paused at the door to let me set my cart down, and then entered the small shop attached to the forge. The small rustic shop was occupied by a light pink unicorn with a silvery blue mane ironically set into a ponytail. The shopkeeper looked up as we entered, yelped at the sight of the white mare and instantly started groveling. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had broken our DEA. You haven't, it's all right. I'm simply helping another today. The cigarette-smoking mare said soothingly, holding up a hoof in a stop gesture to the other mare. Fawkes, would you kindly help this dog? He needs a weaponsmith. I'll consider your debt paid if you do the best you can for him. Fawkes blinked 3 times in rapid succession. Really? The white mare nodded. Yes, paid in full. I threw up my paws defensively. No, no, no. You don't have to do that, I can trade for her services. I'm not broke, you don't have to. Quiet you! Fawkes shouted, pointing at me with a hoof. Her tone held the urgency of someone who didn't want a stranger fucking something major up for them. Deal, she finished holding her hoof out to my mysterious benefactor. The white mare shook her hoof, and I swore the room dimmed for a second before their hooves parted. Right, let her know what you need. I'm fairly sure she's the best smith for 100 miles. The mare began to leave, taking another long drag on her cigarette. I turned as she left and held out one hand. Wait. Why help me like this? I asked. Deep down feeling like the answer to that question was very important. Simple. She answered bluntly, a favor owed is a favor owed. Even a small act of kindness can mean the world to someone. There are some debts which cannot paid off with any single act, but need a few random acts of kindness to fill them out. Always pay karma forward, David. These cigarettes for instance, they were a very kind and thoughtful gift. One worth a few nudges, here and there. She trotted out of the shop leaving only a cloud of smoke and a mind full of questions before vanishing into the crowd. I wheeled around on my left heel as quickly as I could to look over at Fawkes and demanded, okay, who the hell was that, because I definitely know he. Nope. Not talking about her. Fawkes informed in a way too quick, almost panicky voice. I'm not going to press my luck anymore. She says do some work for you, so I'm going to do some work for you, and then I want to never see you again, okay? Nothing personal, I just want to forget everything about a certain bargain. I sighed, realizing that the random incredibly nice eerily familiar mare was just going to burn away at my thoughts for at least a week now. Alright. I need some help making a very particular weapon. I have all the parts, I just need someone skilled enough to weld 5 of them together in just the right way for it to work. Fawkes nodded twice, no problem. Especially if you have the parts. Bring them over to my forge and let's get crackin'. Miss D said to give you my best, so you're getting it. Just don't tell anyone I did the work, okay? I have a reputation for charging a lot of money. Sure, but why? Are you that good? I asked hopefully. Fawkes rolled her eyes and tapped her horn gently. Hello? I'm a unicorn. I forge using magic, always top quality, that includes a spell or two put into the piece to make it just a hair better than any other one out there. Jack. Fucking. Pot. Watch your tail there, buddy, if you knock over that lamp behind you the whole place will go right up. Fawkes said before she ducked out the door. Less than 5 minutes later I was standing with Jade and Fawkes at her workbench, the pieces of my baby laid out over the work surface. Hey! A gun? Flax asked slowly. Yeah. I said with a nod, then stopped and turned to give the unicorn a confused look. What, how do you? Well, sure, they are rare, and I've never seen this type before, but I have made a few wheel locks for griffins and minotaurs before. I didn't think a diamond dog would be interested in competing in, well, rich person sports. Fawkes said, shrugging slightly. What? I asked again, not quite comprehending the fact that this smith, unlike the other 7 who had helped me make the parts, knew what a goddamn gun was, and how unlikely it was that the white mare had randomly shown up given that fact. Wait, you didn't know? Fawkes asked while picking up the barrels with her magic to inspect it's called skeet, you use one of these to shoot a clay disc in the air. It's apparently fun because of how inaccurate the damn things are. How does this one work? All I recognize is the trigger and barrels. Speaking of which, multiple barrels, I'm going to steal that idea. Maybe you could make these things an okay weapon with that idea. Okay? Okay? Okay. I felt my eye twitch slightly, my pride was damaged, and it needed mending. I cleared my throat. Ma'am, I'll have you know that this particular variety of firearm is more than an okay weapon. The 12-gauge round is very good at all kinds of tasks, and the Lancaster design makes the weapon nearly maintenance-free and too simple to fail without being damaged beyond usability. Furthermore, as this is chambered for 12-gauge instead of the original handgun rounds, it Sheesh. Okay, I get it. Weapon masters love their exotic tools. So, how do we put this thing together? Fawkes asked. I felt my eyes narrow in anger at being cut off. As good as she apparently was, this smith was getting to be far too grating to work with. Right. The 4 barrels need to be joined perfectly flush with this support piece, from there I can assemble it myself. Fawkes shook her head, not if you want it to be my best work you can't. I need to do it all, from start to finish. I can use these parts, but the piece needs to be complete when I'm done or it won't work. It might even break. My spell has very specific rules. I sighed and began to pick up the pieces and show the pink pony-shaped sandpaper how to assemble the firing mechanism, breech, ejector spring, and the other moving part. Fortunately it was a simple gun. My dad had owned one of these, and I could clean and field strip one in 10 minutes. That made explaining it far simpler. Wait, so the ball, powder, and ignition source are all contained in a single component? Fawkes asked a second after I explained how the firing mechanism worked. Yeah. Break open gun, put in 4 shells, close gun, boom, 4 shots, fast as you can pull the trigger. I confirmed. That's brilliant! Fawkes exclaimed, sounding actually impressed for the first time since I had shown her anything. It takes the reloading problem completely away. I could scale this up for the cannons and sell shells like these to the guards and make a mint, she laughed lightly. You have cannons? I asked in surprise. Yeah. I mean, sure, hand cannons are basically useless but even a wizard can appreciate a fireball spell and a pony can use. Okay, let's build this thing. I need to see it work. You won't mind firing it for me once, will you? I took a moment to consider her request. Well. Okay. If you put it together properly. Fawkes nodded, satisfied, then sat down with the parts in front of her still on her workbench. Right. I'll need quiet. I gave Jade a look which said, my god, this mare is a pretentious son of a bitch. Jade rolled her eyes, nodded, and then in the back of my mind I heard her voice clearly. Yeah, I know, right. Ah! I yelped, jumping back slightly. SHHH! Fawkes hissed angrily. Jade blushed a deep shade of pink, the blush somehow showing through her fur. Oops! Sorry. Looks like I know you well enough to use telepathy with you now. Sorry for scaring you. I gave Jade a dirty look of disapproval. She was about to mind speech or reply at me when suddenly Fawkes's horn began to glow a light blue, and she snapped her left eye open, leaving the other firmly shut. The entire eye glowed blue with an eldritch energy, like the nimbus around her horn, only brighter. A half-second later the ground around her seemed to swirl as yellow lights edged into existence, forming a large runic circle like someone was drawing it with a half-dozen pins. Fawkes sat at the edge of the circle, and the center was fixed around her workbench, where a large ball of orange light rippled into existence. Fawkes picked up each part of my gun with her magic and gently placed them inside the ball of light, where they simply remained floating like they were stuck into jello. Weld barrels to support. Fawkes said in a dead, emotionless tone. Inside the ball of magic, the 4 barrels snapped into place against the X-shaped support, a bit of white light flared at the seams. Insert ejector spring. Attach ejector rod. Connect strike plate. Assemble firing mechanism. Attach mechanism to trigger. Install assembly in hand grip. Attach grip covers. With each command the material in what I assumed was a literal magic forge obeyed. This mare was putting a CNC machine to shame. I wished I had another 5 guns for her to make. Heat treat barrels, temper, polish, apply metal coloring, stain wood. Attach barrels to grip. Fawkes commanded. The attached barrels clicked into place as commanded, the bolt holding the brake action hinge zipping into place and tightening itself in a way which as a craftsman, made me extremely jealous. The ball of light pulsed as the finished gun sat within its center. Falk's horn flared as she slowly pulled the gun out of the ball of light, which shattered into a million sparks of light as soon as the gun left it. The weapon itself shone with white light. The barrels shone, a beautiful gradient of color fading from a dark cobalt blue at the ends to a lovely sun yellow at the handle. The finish looked like the sky turning from midnight to noon, with the point the sunrise would be being right where the gun broke open like an old shotgun. The wood grip covers were stained a rich ebony color, and a silver inlay of the moon on one side grip, and a gilt inlay of the sun on the other. Falks levitated it over to my awestruck hands, and set it in them gently. I felt like giving it an old Equish mythology sort of vibe, Falks said dismissively, so I decorated it like that. Anyways, that gut feeling probably means the weapon's lucky. I don't know what magic actually goes into a finished piece. Just kinda get a hint and a feeling and how it's decorated. The spell never does the same thing twice though. So, you know, might shoot lightning or something. To be honest, her voice came to me sounding more like the chattering of a dolphin as I looked at what would have been a tens of thousands of dollar gun in my hands. It needed a name, a good name, and someone should say something appropriate for an adventuring person getting their first magical weapon in a magical world. Very bright was that 12 gauge when it was made whole, the light of the sun shone redly in it, and the light of the moon shone cold, and its aim was steady and true. And David gave it a new name and called it Boomstick, Thunder of the West. I paraphrased reverently, finding my words to be perfectly fitting. K. Falks said slowly. I gave her an appropriate glare. Yet. It's just a gun, David. Jade said slowly, it's not like your kid or any. She trailed off as she felt the wall of loving emotion I was beaming right to my new best thing ever. Never mind. Right, so. Are you happy with it? Falks asked with a raised eyebrow. More so than anything I have ever had. I answered, you're amazing. Why are you in a small place like this? You could be working for kings. PFF. As if. Falks laughed, rolling her eyes in amusement. I'm good here, but head south to those assholes who just buy things from Zebrica, and I suck. Better the biggest fish in a small pond than just a normal fish in a big pond. Now then, dog satisfied, debt paid, I'm going to get a drink. Remember, I want to see that thing shot before you leave. Falks trotted off as Jade walked over to me and gave me a gentle hug around the waist. Hey, so I know you really like your gun. Boomstick. I corrected. She has a name. Jade cracked a small smile and gulped back a laugh. I'm sorry, you're like a nymph getting a ponyback ride. He he he. Wait, she asked, still grinning. All ships, cars, and guns are female. It's a rule. I finally snapped out of my totally entranced state, and brought Boomstick over to my cart, and wrapped her carefully in a spare cloth. I'll get you a holster as soon as possible, I said, giving her a pat as I placed her in the cart. Do you need a few minutes alone with that, or should we go pick up the rest of the stuff you wanted for the trip? Jade asked. I blinked, blushed lightly and cleared my throat. Ahem. Yes, that's quite right. Let's go see what we can sell. I can clean and polish her later. Jade snickered and hopped up on the cart. You get more and more fun the longer we hang out. Oh look! I said, pointing quickly to the left at a sign on a nearby building, an armorer. We had better see if he wants to buy anything.